This is Earnest Mann, giving you insights and opinions you just won't find anywhere else. Ever tried to have an intelligent conversation with a stupid person or a drunk person? I bet in either case it didn't go very far or very well. Do that enough times in your life and you'll come to understand the futility of trying to engage with either one. But there's one huge difference between a stupid person and a drunk. You can't reason with a drunk, but eventually they do sober up. Then at least there's a chance of communicating. Not so with a stupid person. I'm telling you this because communication is arguably the most important element for success in life, second only to avoiding drunks and stupid people. Communication is very important. As a matter of fact, it's an integral part of one of the most important skills you can ever possess. And that skill, which has largely been lost in the last 2 generations, is called networking. You see, the secret that I want to share with you is a secret only because it's generational. And if you'll stick around and listen to what I have to say, there is a very good chance that you'll stop suffering the consequences of constantly reacting to what's going on in your life and start being able to actually navigate what's going on in your life. And there's a very big difference between the two. One of the most important techniques used in conjunction with networking is called mind's eye. And actually, both the phrase and the technique were used constantly in my youth. And it's a really phenomenal way to transmit ideas to another person both very clearly and efficiently, as they say in the parlance of our times. Now, before I go into describing the technique of mind's eye, which is actually an English bastardization of the roughly 14th century Buddhist term manzai, meaning thought pictures, let me explain its purpose and why it is vastly superior as a means of true and effective communication. Have you ever sat down with someone you know and were trying to describe a very unusual or disturbing experience you had recently dealt with and used a movie scene as a reference? If you received a sympathetic acknowledgement from the other person, whether it was something funny or something very unpleasant, but they could instantly, even emotionally, understand where you were coming from, that's a perfect example of mind's eye. Before going further, I'd just like to mention that what I'm saying may sound a bit unconventional, but sometimes what you need in your life, if you're experiencing very unusual or unpleasant circumstances, are unconventional ideas as possible solutions. Hey, I'm by no means suggesting that you join some bizarre satanic animal sex cult, or worse yet, become religious. Now, using the mind's eye means of communication is excellent in its efficiency because it connects and conveys so much information in a simple statement, but it does have one serious limitation. It only works if both people have a visual memory of the scene or scenario being discussed. In other words, if you're using a movie scene, for example, to help describe your situation, and the other person hasn't even seen that movie, then they have no point of reference, and that mind's eye communication simply won't work. So when networking, just keep that in mind. I would also suggest not using any scenes from pornographic movies to emphasize your idea or recent experience. Not so much a concern over whether or not the other person has actually also seen the same pornographic movie, but because either way, it most likely would make any further communication very awkward. So hopefully, I've explained the technique of mind eyeing well enough to help get you going. Now let's get back to networking. One of the first things I feel that needs to be clarified is how networking is being defined. In most cases, you'll get a definition something like this from Merriam Webster's dictionary: interchanging information or services among a group of persons or organizations. Does that sound about right to you? Because if it does, that's not my idea of networking whatsoever. If you happen to pick up on the tone of that definition and found it to be dull, lifeless, and a bit more than just anal retentive, congratulations. There is a very high probability that you're not a fucking idiot. Because that's exactly what it is. And, if I may apply a bit of mind eyeing here, if it were sex, it would have all the appeal of a big burly dyke in a bikini. Networking, in the better time and place I came from, was all about making deals, and that meant any deals. And the deals you make are strictly between you and the other person you made the deal with alone. They're not to be scrutinized by anyone, not friends, not family, and especially not the government, in no way whatsoever. And this is for one very simple reason that I believe S.E. Moore said best. The moment a person allows their personal dealings to be scrutinized, to be put under any microscope of legal and or public opinion, that person ceases to have any real and actual freedom, becoming a submissive child of the state and its laws, and living a life of perpetual denial of that childlike state until the day they die. This is the reason, in case you didn't already know this, why incredibly popular and successful show business and entertainment people, not the stupid ones that end up getting sent to prison, tend to have extremely private lives, which is their polite way of saying to their millions of adoring fans, my private life is none of your fucking business. Which, in my opinion, is exactly the way it should be. So at this point, I'm thinking maybe it's a good idea to recap the main points of what I was talking about. Communication is the key to getting what you want out of life. But communication is useless if you're not networking. And one of the most important techniques of networking is using the mind's eye technique to quickly and clearly convey your networking ideas to another person. Networking, within what I feel should be its actual relevant context, is what human beings have done throughout all of recorded history to get that which they need or want. It's the ultimate statement of symbiotic relationships, that you should be able to obtain anything you want or need, with very few exceptions, from another person without threat of interference or death from mob morality, or threat of interference or death by the state. All I can say here at the end is if you're sick of every facet of your life being controlled by the powers that be, then stop agreeing to it and consider actual networking or reaching out to some unusual podcast guy with some very different ideas. After all, he can't be any more unusual than the guy sitting on the bar stool next to you right now that you're afraid to network with. So, if you found this episode informative or entertaining, please consider subscribing. And if you want to just reach out to me with whatever's on your mind, you can do so by clicking on my contact link in the description below. Until next time, this is Ernest, and that's all I've got for today.